Can you please talk to the difference between the two groups, the head up versus the head down courting species?
Yeah, I mean, most of the Parosphromenus we know is head down, so they will just, so everything is just for the courting behavior. Like the Parosphromenus that you see on the internet, there's beautiful pictures. It's mostly males when they try to impress the females. Most of this typical species will have their head down and flesh with a tail kind of about 45-degree, or maybe even with a tail straight up. But then there's a different subgroup, kind of. It's Parosphromenus ornaticauda, Parvulus, and some of Sumatranus that do it the other way around. So they will have the head up and have kind of a dance in the water. It's really nice to observe. For the Parosphromenus sumatranus, I had a few of them in the past, and they were all having this behavior with the head up, and they were having like, I don't know, 30 or 40 centimeters for their dancing moves. So just with the head up, they would dance like this inside the tank to impress the females. And there was another type of Sumatranus reported. Did not see them live. There were pictures, so there's kind of this split of the groups within Sumatranus. So there was one probably local group with the head down, and others with the head up. And it's also the body shape. Most of these head up groups have a really, I don't know, they're kind of thinner. It's not as massive body as the other Parosphromenus.
What causes the difference between the head up and the head down?
It's just the behavior difference, and also there's kind of difficulty in breeding. It is just experience that the head up dancing ones are mostly more difficult to breed. We don't really know why they have this behavior, but we do know they are more likely to place or relocate their eggs. So they have a really small bubble nest. Sometimes they have no bubbles at all and just place the eggs in little under leaves, or maybe they have some like tubes, whatever, like little film tubes, something like this. They can breed in there. And in this head up ones species, they are more likely to relocate their eggs, and then we will not know if there's still eggs or fry there, or if it's just gone. Maybe some eat it, and they seem to be more difficult to breed.
Is there any reason or thoughts as to why they relocate their eggs?
We don't really know. There's a possibility, like some in general, some fish species do not like to be watched. Like they have a really dark cave, so to say, where they want to have their eggs. And if we want to have a look, then we need to have a flashlight. And maybe they just don't want it. They will relocate in some place that we cannot.
Do they relocate them in the wild as well, or just in aquarium settings?
There's no studies in the wild. And also it's really difficult because most of these guys live in really black water. So to see them in the natural habitat will be really difficult. And also to have like behavioral studies, you would need to place some camera equipment around a breeding pair. And I think it is really, really difficult to do such studies.
Is a 30 centimeter tank the minimum required for them to perform their courtship display, or does it differ between species?
Is a really difficult question, because if you just want to breed them, so to say, then there's lots of breeders that would breed a pair in 12 liters, so it's 30 centimeters. But if you see the more natural, so to say, behaviors, like we have one partner, the Aquarium in Düsseldorf, they have a 24,000 liter tank, so it's more than 3 meters large. Yeah, it's a really large tank. So I had a look at that, and then there were really interesting behavior, because the females, they would swim around, and then in each sunken wood, driftwood, something, I don't know, where the males would have their territories, they would swim to the female and try to impress them. So they would have maybe 50, 60 centimeters that they would use to, or try to lure the female in. So I think in a natural environment, they would have territory of about 1 square meter, maybe, probably less because of the black water. They would move within this area.
Do you have any tips on breeding, like ideal water parameters, feeding? She has a small group of the red variety of bintons.
Yeah. It's different for each species a little bit, but there's also common parameters for like the bintan types. It's basically if you use osmosis or rainwater, they will probably be able to breed. But if you go a little acidic, they will really like it. And if you go a little more acidic, it's not really hurting them. So there's some reports that state you need to have a pH of about 4. That is not necessary for Parosphromenus bintan or Harvey or everything of every species of these groups. It's probably around 6. They will breed as well. It is necessary to have kind of clean water. So if you have a lot of water change, then it will help. And also that might be the reason why the low pH would be beneficial, because it's less bacteria in there. Then for the feeding, most of the time you would have to have live food. So if you have the chance to catch it, some larvae or Daphnia, something outside, then it is fine. But if you don't have the chance, then there's lots of possibilities like Temia, obviously, but also like blackworms. There's some microphax worms, dero worms, grindal worms. There's a multitude of different cultures for live food, like moinas and Daphnia. They usually don't really like it, so they prefer moina. They will eat it better. But if you just have a Temia or as the basis, and then there's some additional like moinas or microphax, then this is really fine.
Would you recommend keeping the species separate to avoid crossbreeding?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some species that will not be there's more or less no risk of crossbreeding. Like we said in the start, there's different types with a head up. They will not mix with the head down types. But the more problem is with the identification of the females. I mean, for the males, it's more or less easy when they have colors, but for the females, it's really, really difficult to distinguish different species if this is in the same groups. Like for Linke, or there's different species that have typical coloration even for the females. But if there's the whole Bintan, Harvey, Opalius, lots of these fish, the females will look the same, and then it's more or less impossible to determine if it's crossbred or not. So you would not want to make
Breeding group versus pairs with Bintan, and which method do you think works the best?
I think it is, if you want to have a lot of young, I would prefer a pair. Or if you want to have them in a group, you would want to monitor the caves and the tubes. If there's fry in there, you can extract them and transfer into another tank, grow out. It will be more effective. But if you just want to kind of preserve them so that they will breed naturally, it is possible in a group as well. It depends on the tank. I mean, if it's a larger tank with lots of plants and lots of hiding places, then it will work out as well.
Is it just time before the male figure out how to be decent fathers in terms of looking after the eggs or the wigglers, or do I need to be selective for better brooding males in the group?
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to select. It's kind of, we don't want to have this pet Parosphromenus fish. It should be somehow natural, and so if there's probably a female choice as well, or the strongest male will have the biggest territory. I don't know. I would if it's a group, then I would just let them do whatever they want. And if you select a pair, then of course you would have a look in the group, and if there's active male that is already displaying and cutting the females, then maybe you want to catch this particular pair. If they are already working, so to say, if they know each other, then it's probably easier for them as well if you separate them and try to breed them as a pair.
Can you talk about maintaining genetic diversity in the different paro species when kept in low numbers by hobbyists, or is that not an issue yet?
Yeah, this is interesting. Talking to different conservation project managers, different zoos, you will have a lot of answers. The zoo software tracking genetic diversity was built around knowledge from the large mammals like elephants and tigers and these kind of animals. It would be easy to track each individual. They have low offspring and really large and long life cycles. And it's a whole different story for fish. So it's really difficult to say you need to do this or you need to do that. There's another topic for fish. If they are endemic to really a small stream, one peat swamp, then it is really likely that the whole population is somehow related. So the diversity from the start is, so the genetic diversity is kind of low. It is possible that you can inbreed them forever and then there's no real loss. Of course, there is loss, but it might be easier to have maybe 2 or 3 lines from the original habitat, breed them separately, inbreed them forever, and you will have the full diversity when you necessarily in the future combine these lines. I think it is not an issue. There is, or there are some problems if you inbreed them for multiple generations. There is a point where in some species there might be some deformations, maybe some in some species, but if you select for the healthy ones, like I said, there's Parosphromenus alfredi that is not there anymore. Like in the wild, it's gone. It's just Naji in the original habitats. So we had to breed the alfredi that we have. And in one point, there would be lots of these deformed ones. About 1/4 of the offspring would be deformed. And then there's one breeder, he really heavily selected on the healthy ones. And it seemed to be that this problem is not an issue anymore. I mean, at least it's decreasing. So if you select for healthy ones, there's a time where there will be no issues anymore. Of course, you lost some genetic diversity along the way. If it's possible to have multiple lines, then it will be more practical to preserve the genetic diversity in this way.
A couple of people have mentioned that they've had very small spawn numbers or struggled to raise fry. Is there anything specific that needs to be taken care of for the fry? Is there any, like sometimes discus have a wee issue at sort of 6 weeks, or is there anything that kind of happens with them that can be avoided and to help raise fry?
Of course, it is one thing that the parents might eat them, but it's not necessarily the case. So when I started breeding Parosphromenus, I would just have, one batch in 25 liters. So it would be one pair and they would breed and breed and breed. And then if it's maybe the 4th batch, then they would start eating their small siblings. And then I needed to empty the whole tank and start again. There's some males that try to eat the eggs, so they might be inexperienced, but there's also one hypothesis that they will eat the eggs if there's not a minimum percentage of viable eggs. So if there's a bad rate of healthy eggs, then they will eat the whole thing. At least it is possible. So this might be the case for older fish. It is a hypothesis right now. A little addition, small fry, of course, they need small food. So maybe this might be good to have like vinegar eels or infusoria or like big batches of moss inside the tank to help the first days, and then Atemria will work.
And is there any importance in water hardness for successfully breeding them?
The lower the better. It should be, if it's pure osmosis or rainwater, it should be fine. There's no need to harden it. And if you have really, really soft tap water, it might work out, but mostly you would want to lower it. So if it's as low as possible, then you will be fine.